Hello again. Welcome to Community Board 3 Arts and Culture Subcommittee meeting, first meeting of the year of 2020, March. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with a roll call vote, which will be short since there's just a couple of us here. And approval of the minutes. And to my other subcommittee member, she may have not gotten a minute to vote, to review the minutes. Olympia, were you able to look at the minutes I sent you?
Yeah,
no? Okay.
Yeah, no,
I'll
I
just,
saw it. I saw them. They're okay. Yeah, I can vote.
Okay. All right, cool. So we'll do a roll call vote on approval of the minutes of December. Andrea Gordillo, present. Sorry, give me a second. Tariq Doril, absent. Olympia Kazi.
Present.
I think we have Crystal coming on.
Hi.
Hey, Crystal. Thomas Rosa.
Hi. Okay. Hi, Rosa.
Hey, Crystal, I was just doing a roll call vote on approval of the minutes. So, Crystal Field?
Yes, approved.
Thank you. Okay.
Is anyone else at the meeting yet?
Yes, I'm here with Olympia from the committee as well, and we have a few guests.
Okay.
And Kemi will be presenting on the brown paper.
Okay.
So I know that you have Kemi will be doing a PowerPoint, so I don't know if you have access to a computer, but we'll work this out. Okay, well, we'll work it out.
Okay.
So our first agenda item was a presentation by one of the lead authors, I hope I can call you that, Kemi, of the Hugh Arts Brown paper, which was a paper that was commissioned by the Hester Street Collaborative, Museum Hugh, and the Laundromat Project. And Kemi Sanmi is one of the executive directors and also is an amazing cultural worker in her own right. And she is joining us today to present on there's a map, but there's also something that is of particular interest to this committee is the findings of the report and some of the recommendations. And so I know there's a lot of data about kind of relevant to the CB3 area. So I'll let you take it away, Kemi. Thank you so much for your time and for being here.
All right.
Of course. Good evening, and thank you so much for the invitation. And just to be transparent, this is my the Hugh Arts brown paper and website and everything came out a couple of weeks ago, I believe. And this is the first time I'm actually after rushing to the finish line, actually in a situation where I'm presenting it to other people. So hopefully I'll remember all the good points and definitely invite you guys to ask questions. And I actually figured out, I've been in Zooms literally since 9 a.m. and the PowerPoint was a little too challenging for me to figure out tonight. So I'm just going to take us through the website, which actually has everything on it. And then we can take a look at the map, and then we can happy to answer questions. But before I begin that, just to give a little bit of background. So yeah, this is basically one of the things that, thank you for making me co-host. Hugh Arts NYC basically grew out of the George Floyd summer. It was a case of that was a time when, in the wake of his murder in Minneapolis, many people were looking for ways to highlight, support, and make visible Black folks in particular, and Black entities, but more broadly, just looking for the folks who've been left out of the story. And I ended up in conversation with a friend, and one thing led to another, and decided to try and find some support to actually make this, to count what were the people of color arts or entities within New York City. So there were some basic criteria for being included. After, talking to some folks, and mainly Commissioner Casals at the Department of Cultural Affairs, which then led to further conversations with the Ford Foundation and Mellon Foundation. We got the funding to be able to do this. Also, very quickly was able to bring on Hester Street, which had done the cultural plan and does a lot of amazing community data and development work and visualization and all of that, came on as a partner. And then Museum Hue, which does a lot of work around people of color, museum workers, and people in the arts field, thinking about the professionals in the field, but also Stephanie Cunningham, who's the head of that, has a national map that she put together in 2020, or debuted in 2020, of different people of color museums across the country. So we wanted to look just in New York City and not just at museums. We actually, the reason we often say we have been using the word entities is because we wanted to have it be as open as possible to nonprofits, for-profits, and folks who are fiscally sponsored or otherwise kind of in some kind of gray area as far as their legal structure. Because a lot of folks who are leading people of color arts may not, people are trying this in different ways. People are often not doing this, a lot of financial support. We knew that anecdotally, and we're able to kind of figure that out even further in this research. And we knew we wanted to just get out there, research, figure out who's out there. The basic criteria was that they had to be in New York City, the 5 boroughs only. They had to be one of these, fiscally sponsored, nonprofit or for-profit, and they had to be not just led by and serving people of color, but also founded by. That was really important. That the original founding was by a person of color who was interested, or persons, in creating something that would then serve people of color more broadly and continue to be led by people of color. So that was a really important marker that we kind of decided on early. And it means that there are certain organizations right now that are led by people of color that are not on the map, because that might be their current condition, but wasn't how they were founded. So just want to kind of say those are some of our criteria. And we wanted them to be organizations that had outward facing work. So they're an ongoing entity, not just once or twice, but it could be yearly, like the West Indian Day Parade organization is on there. Their biggest thing that they do is once a year, but all year they're actually working on that project. As well as people who do stuff every day or every week, right? So, but they had to have something that faced out to the world and had something external as well. So arts education, as an example, something that just does arts education and very much internal to like the after school wouldn't be on this list if they didn't have something that had outward facing materials. So let me try and share my screen so everybody, wish me luck on this. Actually, before I do that, let me find it. Google Chrome. Sorry, let me actually, how do I get out and do this again? All right, let's see and share. All right, so this is our website, which has everything that we're up to in general. It's Hue Art. We came up with the name, playing with the idea of color and hue. We're mapping a future for arts entities founded and led by Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, and all people of color in New York City. Lots of debate and conversation about that. We decided as much as possible to kind of name who we wanted to be speaking about. If you go to the website, there's a brown paper, which I'll take you through in a second. And then there's a map, which I'll also take you through in just a second. And then one of our calls to action was we actually wrote a letter to the mayor, and we're in the midst of collecting signatures. Really encourage you to sign and to share it with others. And then we also had stories. We have about 7 or so stories that we put together just to kind of make real the kinds of organizations we're talking about. In putting this together, we ended up pulling together, we started with interviews, lots of one-on-one interviews with people in the field, people running organizations that were in this space, all of our local arts councils. We talked to all 5, plus the Department of the DCLA, our arts commission here in the city, so that a lot of them had done bits of research, as well as there's a Mosaic Fund that had done bits of research. So we're kind of trying to collect all the bits of research that have been done to make a list. And in just kind of chatting with people and getting a sense of what people cared about or what they were hearing. We also put together a list of, or a group of 13 advisors who were running and part of the eligible organizations and entities. And we did a community forum last summer. We had a little bit of a social media push to kind of learn and hear about people. But to make clear, a lot of the 412 people on this list and the map don't necessarily know they're on it. That's actually the next part of our work, because we did our own research. We know that we didn't catch everyone, but we did our best. And then we kind of matched them against our own criteria to see if they were eligible to be on the list. So I'm going to go into the brown paper, and I want to actually find findings. So we had 6 main findings and 6 key recommendations. So I'll just go over them quickly and then we can chat about them. So the first was POC arts entities are deeply embedded in their communities, and they're often doing a whole lot more than just arts programming. So a lot of, voter registration, in the middle of pandemic, providing all kinds of other services and kind of stopgap measures for communities that were really challenged. And that was key to their work at all times, because a lot of people stepped up in the pandemic, and that was amazing. But this had actually been part of the ways that they showed up in their communities for years. So that was a key one, that it really was a mission. No matter what the mission said, they were often doing work far beyond just arts. POC arts entities are often connected to a sense of place and neighborhood, but rarely had a stable place of their own. So a lot of these will connect to our recommendations. Oftentimes renting someone's kitchen table, as neighborhoods get gentrified and people get displaced, culture also gets displaced, right? So that was a key one as well. People want stability, but it has been very elusive for a lot of our entities. Very resourceful and resilient in the face of long histories of structural, generational, chronic underinvestment, and very limited social financial support. So we have a number of charts and things of that nature, just kind of looking. We did a survey. We had about 41 entities respond, so about 10%. We would love to do another round, but that's what we're kind of able to manage last year. So we're also pulling from all of these different research methods. But a lot of the people who responded were very heavily dependent on either foundations or government or their own pockets, but very unstable finances. But continuing to show up and do the work, even with under 100,000, under 25,000, under 5,000, right? Like people were still managing to do the work. One of the things that we are really focused on that this even connects to is that there's not enough data about where POC entities are, what they're up to, what they do, how they do it, what they care about. So this is the beginning of a conversation, not the end. We pulled this together, and we hope that it'll lead to more conversations, more digging, more data. Number 5 is increased staff capacity and the ability to support artists are urgent. People have so many amazing ideas and possibilities, but not enough capacity to do it. And finally, POC entities face extra layers of challenges in securing adequate funding in comparison to predominantly white-led and institutions, for all the reasons that you might imagine, from structural to issues of capacity. All of these findings are interlinked and connect to one another, and are in the context of living in a society for which structural racism shows up in institutional support, government support, contracts, foundation support, et cetera, right? So it's showing up in a lot of different ways, and in the ways that we can kind of keep going as arts organizations. But again, we were really interested in leaning into the power and the resilience as well, because it turns out there are 400 plus of us who are still doing this work in spite of all of this. And then I'll finally just go through recommendations very quickly. And I definitely invite you to spend time on the website. So our big six, and I'll just read them or quickly refer to them, was really thinking about structural, long-term, generational disinvestment. We are calling for $100 million from private and public entities, so not just government, but also philanthropy, to support organizations that deserve to be doing the work they do for more than 25,000. Our rough math was if there are 400 of us, 250 a piece could be a real game changer for a lot of organizations. So it's not meant to be a one-to-one, but just to give you a sense of how we got to 100 million. Really wanting the city to bake in a baseline budget item that we don't have to fight for every year to support POC arts in the city. Investing in place as a long-term strategy. So again, because that's something that was missing, really wanting to like have some dedicated attention to that. And fostering career and community building among professionals. A lot of people are doing this work without a lot of support and capacity. Data, investing in that, and investing in our higher visibility more generally. And just to show you the map, if I can open that, this is what the map looks like. My box is standing in the way. I'm gonna move it. So you can look up an organization over here like Chen Dance, which is in your general, I believe is in your district. I already pulled them up, but if we just look them up, we would do that. And I'm gonna move this, and then it shows you where it is. A number of organizations don't have a space on the map because they're actually virtual. But for the people who have a physical space, it's on the map with the address given. If you want to know how to use it, you would just, this is the easy kind of code, tells you the criteria. When you first come to the map, it tells you how to join the map or put your name, put the name of the organization to join. It has to then be vetted before it actually be added. These are the different codes. So there's a dance center, literary, textiles, etc. This is a filter if you wanted to look up dance, New York, the borough of New York, so Manhattan, but you could also do somewhere else, but I wanted to look up what you guys have, virtual or not, Asian Pacific Islander, you would apply all of that. And all right, let me see, I'm gonna do dance. And I think, let me see what I'm not doing. It definitely worked earlier. It has, okay, there, I think. Let me do that. Okay, I'm gonna try this again. Dance, filters. I'm gonna clear. Let me see, apply. So there, Chen still came up as a dance place in New York City. It's acting funny right now because that's what things do when you're on display. But I swear to you, there's a lot of people, including Ryan, have spent time on this, and there's actually a lot of fun things to do. So I'm gonna try and get out of the box and find my Zoom again and come off, stop sharing. Great. So hopefully that was helpful in just kind of orienting what we've been up to and the possibilities. We've been hearing so much from folks about finding people in their neighborhoods close by, people that they might partner with. Funders have really reached out and are wanting to know more. And a couple of council people have reached out. So we're just at the beginning of trying to kind of, you guys reached out, beginning to kind of talk about it and share more publicly.
Amazing, thank you. I'm gonna open it up to the floor and see if anyone has any questions.
Well, I might have a question. I don't know whether I'm hearing things correctly. Did you say that you chose organizations that were founded by people of color?
Yes.
What made you do that instead of them that were run by people of color currently?
Because we were interested in organizations that since their very beginning people of color were their reason for being and who they were focused on. So it wasn't about who was leading it currently, because a lot of changes have happened in the last few years, and that's amazing and wonderful. But the idea was really to center and focus on arts entities that from their very genesis, from the minute they came into existence, were centering people of color arts. That was the idea from the beginning.
Thank you. Go ahead, Olympia.
Hi there, thank you for the presentation. You know, I mean, it's a vast project, so that you understand my perspective, I'm one of the co-founders of the New York City Artists Coalition and the Music Workers Alliance.
Yeah.
We were the people behind the Cabaret repeal, the March raids, etc. So I quickly went on your map and I looked for some of the spaces. So we work with a lot of people of color, especially because they're targeted and criminalized. So for instance, places like Educated Little Monsters or with Jazo or Building Beats, I didn't see them in the map, and I didn't know, even though you said at the beginning that you guys are looking both at for-profit and not for profit, and I'm assuming both highbrow and lowbrow and you know, street art. And so I mean, again, it can be an endless project, but basically very often what I discovered in my work is, especially when we're talking about people of color, you almost have them more thriving in that environment than the traditional institutional environment, what we call grassroots cultural spaces, like in my advocacy. And so I was wondering, how do you see them as opposed to a Clemente or something like that, that is more institutional in this research? And they wouldn't, by the way, unfortunately, they wouldn't access funding by DCLA.
Yeah, and we definitely, so again, we ended up with a list of 412, and we expect it will grow. That's what we were able to research, because a lot of people are working really under the radar. So we did our best to like try and get as many as we could. And it's at least, you know, easily, you know, 375 more than I certainly knew prior to going into this. But we know we miss people. That's part of the point, is also to like, so that's why literally when you come to the map, which is acting right now that it's not being shared, is doing just fine. The very first thing you see is like, join the map. Here's how to like fill out a form, get the information. And then we haven't quite figured out how often we'll be able to update it, but that is the invitation. It will still go through a filter, because they're definitely, again, the founded by is the biggest thing. And a lot of people don't make it through that filter, or sometimes it's hard for us to figure out if that's actually the case. But we, Museum Hue is actually going to be the owner of this. The LP Laundromat Project was part of like getting this together, as was Hester, but we're now in the process of, you know, kind of shifting it over to where Museum Hue will be the main kind of folks owning it, and needing to come up with a process and a schedule for adding people. But we actually saw this as the start of a conversation and an invitation to find even more. If by the end of this year, this list is 600, all the more amazing, right? And we want to know the people who are doing it at the $5,000 level, and there are a couple of people doing it at the 5 million, like the studio museums. And Clemente probably has a decent budget, maybe not 5 million, but those are the outliers. Most people were 250 and below, 1 million and below. That's kind of our reality. But yeah, we're not saying we caught everybody, but we did do our best to catch as many as we could, to kind of get this conversation going. Because part of it was making visible. So everyone is like, oh my God, I didn't know this was here and these people were there. That's a big part of the project, is just to see what's out there and not be able to say, I'm not sure, maybe they're 20. No, they're 400 and counting.
Thank you.
Before we go to Ryan, can I just, so my follow-up, just because for the kind of spaces that I'm talking, a lot of them would be resistant to be mapped because they feel that they could be targeted then. You know what I mean? And so that's what I wanted to flag, because you know, if we're talking about that kind of culture, yes.
Yeah. Certainly, if no one, as far as I know, has reached out to if they are on the map to say take them down, but not everybody yet knows they're on the map. So that is a good thing that I certainly hadn't really been thinking about deeply, and we would take them off. It would be, I want to be taken off or I want to be added. We definitely have heard from people who want to be added, but have not yet heard from people who would like to be taken down. And if they're not on the list and don't want to, then they just wouldn't nominate themselves. But for us, a big part of this is that everybody involved in it was a person of color who wanted to do this thing. And so for us, it was a for us, by us, a FUBU project. And we actually talked about issues of visibility might work for many, but not all. And like, obviously, we really want to respect wherever an organization or entity feels and how they want to interact with the map is going to be part of our learning process over the next months and years.
Thank you.
Thanks, Olympia. And
Brian?
Ryan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Kemi knows that I'm super impressed by this project, and that, of course, the moment it came out, I was searching the Lower East Side, and, you know, for folks that I was like, oh no, I didn't know these folks. And, you know, fortunately there weren't a lot of them, but still, you know, there's some discovery there. Kemi, I mean, I know that like making this world visible, like truly visible, and fighting back that perspective that I think we hear too often about, you know, from funders, especially major funders, saying, well, I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know these people, you know, sort of taking that off the table, right, as a reason for not, there's no reason to be ignorant, right?
Yes.
And then, you know, the big push for, you know, this larger sort of, I don't know if it's reparations, but there's an acknowledgement of past wrong,
Yes.
you know, built into the ask, and attempting to address that. But are there other kind of ways that you imagine this transforming into a network, into an organizing, you know, work over the long haul? And I was just wondering if some of that, beyond the immediate goals that you stated, you know, you might share something about.
Absolutely. For me, that is key. I think the question is how much of that is going to be organic versus organized by Hugh Arts NYC, which is being held by Museum Hugh. So for the LP, it means anyone, there are a couple of people in Bed-Stuy that we didn't realize were in Bed-Stuy, like we thought they were a little further out, et cetera. So there's an opportunity for us to be like, we should all, you know, once summer comes and we can sit around a picnic bench outside, let's get together and like be in connection in a more deep way. We also talked about like really having funding for local corridors, like Fulton Street. If you think a few blocks off in either direction in Brooklyn, has a lot of different POC arts organizations that kind of, from Weeksville to the LP to a couple of other folks, Kumbe, Mokada. Like Fulton actually has a whole strip of Black arts entities in particular. So that might be something that we might organically be able to kind of connect with one another. I know for Stephanie at Museum Hugh, there is the possibility of, you know, podcasts and case studies and interviews and people connecting to make festivals together, or connecting to write sign a letter to the mayor, or there's all kinds of possibilities. And for us, we really think of what are the ripple effects. So this is our pebble. We hope it's a bigger, not so much a small pebble, and then like what ripples are going to come out of it. And some of that, Museum Hugh is just beginning to ramp up its own possibilities around this project, along with the other work they do. So that's kind of the space to look at for the more organized. But my hope is no one's even waiting for the organized, and people are calling and reaching out and connecting on their own in a more organic way.
I have one last question, if you have time.
Yeah.
It's just very broad. I know that, you know, this is like the first of its kind, and there was a lot of groundwork, but I'm wondering what would be something you would want to learn more about, or what are the kind of next steps for this in your perspective?
Yeah, there's so much. I would definitely like to continue filling out the map just generally. And because we were pulling from a lot of different lists and crowdsourcing, and then again, putting people through the filter internally before they actually made it on the map. But we know that there's people missing and the detail is missing. Some of them we know the name, but not necessarily all the detail of what they're up to. So just as an opportunity to just learn a lot more and then kind of see where there might be these kind of different opportunities for networking and connection. One of the things that I would say is my dream, and that I think is a dream of a lot of other people in the field, is the opportunity to make a professional life among POC arts entities. It's not very possible right now. And that would mean that you might move from the Studio Museum to El Museo to the Laundromat Project, like being able to make a professional life serving and connected to POC arts entities. And a lot of that is about having the support to pay people adequately, having the capacity so that people can actually ramp up their staffing and have capacity around this for the people who want it. All 412 don't have to have big staff. Some people will always be 5,000. That's what works for them. But a lot of folks are not small because they want to be. They're small, the kind of small they are, because that's kind of structurally what feels possible and sustainable. So that's one of my dreams, is like how to really build a network of folks who do this work deeply, care about it, are in this context of really shifting our understanding of who is serving whom and what pockets. A lot of this is very community-based and neighborhood-based work. And being able to see each other and kind of connect within our different enclaves, but also have, to Ryan's point, I hope an opportunity to then kind of like, oh, I'm doing my work in Bed-Stuy or Chinatown or Jackson Heights, but there will be opportunities to then come up and be like, let me be part of that citywide conversation. So, both Ryan and I have been very involved with NOCD. So like, what are those moments when, yeah, we're doing our work on the ground, but also providing opportunities where we can have strength in numbers internally and externally facing, because sometimes that's about advocating and being an activist, and sometimes it's just we want to learn and be in community. We want one another to grow stronger together. So I think there's a lot of opportunity and room there, for both like collaboration, networking, partnership, as well as advocacy and visibility, and really being able to go from the community level to the citywide level and being able to flex between those two more easily than we do now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for inviting me. I really am really happy to have been able to share this. Please spend time on the map, send us notes. There's ways to kind of reach us, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kemi. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
All right. So the next sort of agenda item I had was I put together a very, very basic resolution. Did you want to say something?
Good night. Thank you for
okay. Good night, Ryan. Thank you.
Tonight. Yeah.
Thanks. I put together a very simple resolution. I will share it. We can discuss, how we feel about it. I put it together thinking about the kind of support we've done in the past, and kind of building off of that. So again, very, very bare bones. We don't have to, I don't know if we even have quorum to vote on it right now. So it would be something we would have to deal with like in the executive committee or something. Yeah, so I just put this together sort of looking at some of the, a little bit of the data, trying to get a number of the organizations that might be relevant that are kind of in CB3, although I might have to change that and put the citation from the map there. Would it help me to read it out loud since Crystal's not seeing my screen? Okay, so the title is to support Hugh Arts New York City 6 recommendation to citywide lawmakers. Whereas Community Board 3 is home to more than 50 arts and cultural organizations, a majority of whom are led by and or serve the Black, Latino, Latina, Latinx, or Puerto Rican constituencies and communities that reside in CB3, recognizing that people of color led, in parentheses, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern organizations are a critical part of supporting important work by artists and creative professionals, many of whom go on to make major contributions to American arts and culture. Recognizing that these entities provide a sense of belonging, and this is a quote from the report, a sense of belonging, history, and pride, and showcase the rich stories and creative practices that make up the tapestry of many people of color communities, end quote. Whereas the Hugh Arts NYC report provides a first of its kind attempt to provide insight on the impact of people of color led organizations. Whereas CB3 is home to a high level of respondents to the research survey, whereas such organizations have faced significant and historic undercapitalization, therefore be it resolved that the recommendations put forth supports the recommendations put forth by the initiatives. And I put the list there, and we can discuss some of them line by line, but they're the ones that are the ones that Kemi discussed, and they're specifically from the report. The designated fund, $100 million fund, a baseline budget, investment in long-term strategies for POC arts and stability and thrivability, foster career and community building among professionals at POC arts entities, self-determine data needs and priorities for and about POC arts entities, and finally invest in higher and sustained visibility for POC arts entities in New York City. So thanks for listening. How does everyone feel about this? Again, we don't need to take action right now, where we could. That's something we can deliberate. We want to bring this to, since we don't have a committee that we're reporting to right now, this would go to executive committee. Olympia, go ahead.
Well,
Crystal, can I let Olympia speak, and then I'll have you next?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I would suggest, generally, I guess it can go to exec, and you can pass it in full. It's not a matter of quorum. It is two things to keep in mind. One is, it's usually we send it 24 hours earlier so that we can review it as members, like the draft result. That was something that was decided in the past. And then I think if we're going to pass it, we should pass it now, because they're trying to influence the budget. So these 6 asks are for this year's city council budget that will be finalized in the next 2 to 3 months. I think overall the what they're trying to ask is good. I have some concerns, because, for instance, you see they have some institutions that are let's say the Korean institution, and then once they go toward ethnicity, this is an immigrant city. What about Bay Region, Ukrainian or Russian institutions? They don't identify as POC, but you want this kind of ethnical groups also to, be recognized for the values that they bring, etc. And there were some conversations when Finkelberg became the commissioner about how do we do, in the Bloomberg era, it was capital A art, and then in the de Blasio era, it became lowercase a art. And so I think in terms of, I think this is good, but I think sometimes the criteria, that's why I would almost like to study it a bit more, because what is left out and what is included is not done in a way that is consistent and always to the benefit of those in need. You know what I mean? And so, That is my concern. But I mean, for the level of resolution that we're passing, it's just, I think we're okay.
Yeah, to answer your question really directly, and then I'll go to Crystal. If you bring up a good point about mostly about like cultural specificity. I think that there's a lot of alignment with people who are from different ethnic communities, but might not necessarily be these categories, in the second part. And recognizing that CB3 is home to like the Ukrainian Museum is something we can put here. I wouldn't have any objection to that at all. But the larger question is still remains. But Crystal, go ahead.
No, I just, I mean, it's fine. I think it's supporting the Black and Latino population of the Lower East Side, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do just want to bring to your attention that your proposal does not talk about companies that were started with people of color. It's run by people of color, which I think is just fine. I'm not too crazy about limiting anything to only companies that were founded by people of color. I did not get a proper reason for her choosing that. I think it's a strange choice. But your proposal doesn't say that, so it's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great. I mean, I'm used to being anything that has to do with emerging artists is always very low on the totem pole. And this is, I'm old enough to remember the last time we were worried about people of color, and the same thing happened. Friends of mine would say to me, "Oh yeah, we just got this grant." Woody, would come to me and say, "Oh, Crystal, I'm sorry you didn't get it, because you're not a people of color, but we got it." And I would say, "Congratulations, good. I'm glad you got it." So now it happens again. It's fine. I'm all for it. I would like people to know that the Lower East Side and the East Village is home to emerging artists, and they never get funded. I just want to say that again. But I'm all for this proposal. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Andrea, yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, I looked in the map, like they don't even include Arts for Art, right? And Arts for Art is, in terms of music, what William Parker and others have done for musicians of color locally has been so important. So, I mean, that's why I'm telling you, maybe the discerning criteria cut places that do work for POC communities, meaningful work for POC communities. I mean, I don't know how come Arts for Art is not included. Do you know?
I don't know. No, I haven't had time to go through, the whole list, per se, but I guess sort of I don't know the whole full history of Arts for Art, but just to answer that question sort of, and also Crystal's about the distinction between being founded and then being led, is that it's a very different set of challenges that a institution has, like when let's say an institution like, a major arts institution, let's say the Met or whatever, gets its first Black curator. That's a very different kind of set of challenges for the people of color communities than would be one that was, like a studio museum or like a CCADI, where it was kind of like founded out of a civil rights movement or something like that. It just presents a bunch of different challenges that distinction I think is important to make. And like I said, I should know the history of Arts for Art, but off the top of my head, I don't.
I mean, it's
So,
basically African
and
American jazz, like,
yeah,
but
yeah,
also
yeah.
contemporary, like, so it is like really emblematic and important.
No,
And
I
so,
understand their mission. I just don't know, their history as an organization. So I'm hearing a couple things. One was the clarification about like including some language maybe about cultural specificities, just to be like a little bit more inclusive. And
no,
then,
I mean, Andrea, I think it's okay to pass it like that. I was just saying that,
okay,
like, we just saw the presentation today and I had read a little bit about it. I mean, if we want to be rigorous, there seem to be some lacuna, like there seem to be like what is included and what is excluded. Right now it's a bit randomized. However, their asks are very straightforward. These
Mhm.
6 asks that you lined out here are more straightforward than the project itself. And I think we can all support those with the
Yes.
resolution without going into the details. Just like Crystal was saying, like, this is not among their asks and what they're trying to get this
Got
year.
it.
I mean, and I can't see it because it's a bit small on my screen, but if you want to email us the rest of that would be, easier.
Is this a little better?
Yeah, much better. Thanks.
And then one thing I wanted to just respond to Crystal about was that the second line, I think we could make it more explicit. I think this is a really important piece about the emerging artists, because there is a lot of evidence to back this claim. There are books that I've read about it, that a lot of these organizations that are kind of founded by and for people of color are often the most like nurturing places for emerging artists, right? Like like that there's numerous examples of that. So if we wanted to, we could write like a little bit about that, but
I think it would be good to put
artists and
emerging artists in there somehow.
yeah,
Because, an organization can be founded a certain way. That doesn't mean it's going to stay like that.
yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And lots of organizations don't. They change over time, and they often become gentrified, and their missions become diluted. I'm not saying these don't, the ones they found, but I'm just saying that that's not uncommon. So what they are now is really important. What they're
Right.
doing now and who they serve now, I think, is the utmost importance.
Got it.
Anyway, I think it's a good resolution.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything that stands out for you, Olympia, that we should change or modify?
If you can scroll down to see the 6 asks, these are like, are they copy paste from them or did
They're
you
line
change
for
them?
line. Yeah.
Excellent.
Mhm.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, if we agree with all of them. The only thing that like maybe is kind of maybe confusing, but not lethal, is that they did put these recommendations together, I guess, thinking about maybe like philanthropy, and knowing that government probably won't come up with $100 million. But that's okay. I don't know if that's something we want to discuss, but
I mean, to me, it's just confusing when you have Alvin Ali and this thing, the Korean American Association, that they seem very, huge institutional in some ways. And then places that we know are like truly fostering specific artists of colors. Some of them, like even like super low bro, like the people that I work with in Bed-Stuy, that they do like DJing and mixing and producing with young kids of color, and they are excluded, right? So that is a little bit my concern. That is like, I mean, but again, it's okay. It's overall, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the size. I mean, did Kemi say it was like 5 million was the largest one? Maybe was it studio or something?
The
Yeah.
Studio Museum of Harlem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing I would say to that is like, something like a $5 million a year organization, when you look, it's like a bell curve of, the larger organizations just get very, very exponentially larger, and then there's a huge number below that bell curve. But I understand what you're saying. Okay, anything else you would like to discuss? Otherwise, we can take a vote on it and go on to the next agenda item.
I mean, since we have few people from the public, we can also, usually what we do is we open them to discuss the subject before we pass into the resolution passing, but I don't know if
Sure.
anybody, they're welcome, I
Good
guess.
point. Yeah, and thank you both for being here and listening. Maybe they're cooking dinner time.
Yeah,
That's fine.
my nose is half broken because my household is also eating next to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, all right, so. Okay, so we'll just go, any last questions or comments from the public? Okay. Sorry, give me a second. Let me just put this in the minutes. Well, actually, I think I can just have this be voted on during our vote to adjourn. Okay. Oh, good call. Yes, and for Cass and Jay Wong, if you both are listening, if you could please put your attendance information, your name, and any affiliation you might have in the chat. Sorry about not forgetting that earlier.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So the next item I had was, I'm gonna have to probably share my screen for this one, but I wanted to bring up a subject that was done by this committee a long time ago, which was put together like a resource list for all of the entities that exist in CB3 arts entities. And I wanted to bring this up because a lot of these folks have kind of shut down or moved. And I was wondering if we wanted to discuss possibly updating some of these. I think it would be a small kind of little project we could divvy up. But I find this to be a super valuable resource. I would hope we could promote it a little bit more, but there's limited information about this. We've discussed before. Fab has a wonderful resource, but it's a little bit more limited to their members and their projects and that sort of thing. So I guess I don't know if you remember this, Crystal. I'll share my screen just so you see what it's like. It's a website on the CB3 website. So it's just a spreadsheet of all of these different organizations and their contact information. And that's one of the things, is that the contact folks have changed quite a lot. But yeah, just wanted to open up and see if this is something we would want to pursue right now. We could work around open meeting laws by sort of like dividing it up by committee members to kind of just do a little bit of due diligence and figure out who's closed and who's changed where, that sort of thing.
You're going to find people have changed. Even,
people have changed, yes.
People have retired, and I'm thinking of Linda Chapman, for instance, who I know just retired from.
So Crystal, you're not seeing the screen, but this was definitely done before the pandemic, but there's 201 cultural organizations, galleries, different theaters, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I was actually a part of getting that original list. The problem with now is that there are still places that are half closed and that will not die, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, it's a little early to we may be taking some people off the list who are going to come back, you know? That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. I'm thinking maybe we should wait a couple of months before we you know, absolutely make a new list.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
see what, because there was there was a lockdown, and then there was a spirit of reopening, and then came the next variant, and there was
Mhm.
another shutdown.
Yeah, it's a good
So
point.
yeah, people are
I'm sure we
just
can find a way to
beginning
work
to
around that.
come
Olympia
back.
has her hand raised, so I'm gonna let her speak.
So, I mean, to be honest, I never even been able to find this link on the website.
Mhm.
So, and also we discussed over time what is the usefulness of something like that, because there were different moments in which people had talked about the calendar or things like this. I mean, I believe that there is value on updating it, but I wouldn't take it on for us. I would basically, how the community board every year get some interns to do like the research projects. We could add this in the docket of things that we would like, someone to work on, and then basically find also a better way to design it, because just as updating an old spreadsheet that will become old very soon again, I don't think it's the best way. So maybe find a way in which maybe it's an easily updatable online form that the organizations themselves maybe are prompt every 6 months or something to update it. But working with a planning student or one of those interns that we get every year at the community board on this, I believe would be a more effective way to achieve what I think you're trying to achieve.
Okay, that's a good idea as well. Yeah, someone from ICP actually just messaged me. I think that I don't know if we can message everyone in the chat, but they filled out a form, and I think the form is sort of in some kind of ether of some sort. So it's something I'll bring to the district office and see, because this was, I don't remember the inception of this project and sort of how we were doing it, but if there is a form, maybe there's a way we can kind of streamline this, and yeah, having an intern doing it is a good idea.
Originally, I'm speaking of a number of years ago, we divided up among the committee, and each of us, what we did was each one of us researched as many organizations as we could find,
Mhm.
and we got their addresses and their phone numbers and their emails and gave them in, and that's how we did it. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I did was I reached out to it was then called UBA. What's that? The Off Broadway Alliance, and asked them for their membership that was in this area, and I got a ton of organizations that way, for example. So I don't know whether you could go to the district office and whether they would be able to do it, as well as committee members
Right.
who will maybe
Yeah.
know of, because there are new organizations that have sprung up too,
Yeah.
the other thing.
So yeah, this was like a great endeavor. I'm curious how you all went about doing it. I mean, were you kind of canvassing the streets? Like, how did it sort of come about? Because 200 organizations is a lot. So, and yeah,
Well,
we don't. Yeah, go ahead.
that's what we did. We said, Theater for the New City, um, start trying to find out all the organizations that you know about that are on in your area. Um, and that's what I did, and then other committee members did it, and that's how we got the list. That
Okay.
is how we got the list.
Yeah.
We are in touch with a lot of community centers. Call up the community center and say, who's giving you free tickets? How are your members going? How are your members being culturally uh, feeding? How are they feeding culturally? And then they'll tell you, oh yeah, this one, that one, that one. Yeah, we go to that museum, we go to those theaters. You have to. In other words, Theater for the New City has a lot of contacts, and that's what we would. That's what I did. I contacted our contacts, and so did the other members, and you'd
Okay.
be amazed.
Great. So maybe it's a little bit of a collaboration between some of the resources from the district office, and then a couple, like a little bit of us pitching in from our expertise. Yeah, Olivia,
Yeah.
go ahead. Olivia has her hand raised.
That would be good.
Regarding the form that you were raising, Andrea, that maybe you heard in the chat, maybe 3 years ago, I don't know, because of the pandemic, we lost the count of time. Tati Jorio had worked on a form, maybe even with me, I don't even remember, like a Google form, and we had sent out to everybody all the emails in the current database so that people could update and respond. Maybe that's the form to which this person was referring to. But I think like she had gotten also a lot of bounce backs. So I don't know if that's the form that you were asking about. It may be, that's the one form that I knew recently, relatively recently. And then I think also when they put it together, that I think it was before my time on the committee, but not too long before. I think Caroline worked with Ryan also from some like database that Ryan had, and then expanded it the way Crystal talked about,
Okay.
But there was some research that was done around Create NYC outreach, I think.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. Yeah, I remember this now, but I also I remember some of the challenges where I think that people were just kind of overwhelmed by surveys, and so this one kind of just fell by the wayside. But I'll try and recuperate some of these things, and like I said, collaborate with the district office to find a way to do this as a little bit more turnkey, and then kind of go from there. And we can have this be like an iterative little project between us, but I think it's valuable, and then obviously have it on the website too, so people can actually find it.
Yeah, it is valuable because of COVID, because COVID changed things so much. We need it. We do need a new list. We do. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so we can do better outreach too in the future. To town halls, all kinds of whatever things. Okay. Any other last?
I'm just curious, Crystal. I had never heard of this Off-Broadway Alliance. Is it a group that has been long in existence?
Off Broadway. Yeah, it's been an alliance for many years. I'm not much in contact with them right now, but I believe we are a member. We paid our dues. You have dues every year. Yeah, it was Virginia Luludis was the head of it, but I don't know who's the head of it now. I think she may still be involved in it, in the organization. They actually, I think, got a building in Brooklyn, and near the in the major part of Brooklyn, near the museum, near the near BAM, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
They definitely before COVID they were very active.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you. I'll look them up.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to move on to our last agenda item. This should be pretty quick. Second. I was going to, actually, I thought I had these up. Give me 1 second. I was gonna take a look at last year's district needs statement. Just because since we're a committee that meets a little less frequently, we don't have as much time to discuss. So I just wanted to get us in the mindset of doing this at our next meeting in May. Again, no need to take any action on it, just sort of like, just get us thinking about it. And I'm sorry, I thought I had the last version here, but I'm just digging it up. 1 second. Sorry, it's like in some old files here.
So if you go on our website at CB3 and you click on the district profile, you can see the district needs there and you just scroll to our section. I
Okay.
will put the link on the chat. This way you're
Thank
sure you're
you.
looking at the
Thank
most
you.
updated.
Perfect.
I just put you there.
Okay.
And basically regarding our seat, I know the link you sent me, but basically when I go and scroll through the website of the
It's not there.
CB3, yeah, I don't know what it, what I mean? It's these websites have so many things, so you can't really find sometimes things where they live.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. I'll definitely flag it to the district office. And thank you for finding that. I think I had so many different versions of this statement. I was like lost with them. Okay, so let's see.
When did we do the last district needs? Because I don't think it was that long ago.
It's not. It comes fast. I believe it'll get adopted in July.
No, I mean,
or-
when was the last district needs that we did?
I think
You
last
know?
spring.
Yeah,
Last spring.
we start the process in the spring.
About a
It's
year
almost,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, I things might change over the next few months, and I really just wanted us to kind of refresh our memories.
Maybe you could send it to us by email.
The
so
last
we
one,
could take
sure.
a look at it. Yeah, if you
It's
want us to
it's
look
actually
at it.
Olympia found it on the CB3 website. A whole district needs statement for the whole community board is on there, and cultural affairs begins on page 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All right.
I mean, I'm happy to email you, Crystal.
Yeah, send it to me. That would be great. Send me the cultural affairs part of it.
Okay.
No
if
problem.
You can, page 4.
So
Yeah, because we worked very hard on that, I remember.
yeah, we did.
There was a lot of discussion.
Yeah, and the last assistant district manager was very good about making sure that we have labor statistics and that sort of thing. The arts and cultural world transformed a lot because of the shutdown. And so my guess is like maybe our needs are going to be focused on like the recovery. And
Yeah.
and maybe a lot of these are still relevant just because we don't know, we're still in the pandemic. I don't know how the arts world will, there's a lot of uncertainty around adaptation of life around this virus. So so yeah, we had talked about the impact of the pandemic on the arts workforce in particular.
Right.
Yeah, and some of the priorities we discussed was the expanding the City Artist Corps program.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, expanding affordable and accessible workspaces for artists.
Oh, yes.
More
Well,
equity in funding, particularly for small and mid-sized cultural organizations.
right. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I think those are all very laudable requests. Those
yeah,
are district needs.
yeah, we had a couple more too. We had the need for engaging. I guess this would be kind of like a land use sort of need, but how arts and culture is included in development. I'm guessing
Yes,
commercial
I
and
remember
residential
that.
real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last
Yeah.
one was also was about Charas, and the need for
That's right. That's right.
restoring it to the community.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. I remember the discussions.
mhm.
We had lots of discussions about it, and I thought we came up with a very good list of district needs. I remember that that's why they left in the emerging artist was part of it. I remember that. Um, so I think it's an important thing to be thinking about
Mhm.
because it really it, it's listened to by the community board. I mean, um, district needs are one of the major ways that you can talk to um, the community board.
Mhm.
That's a big, you know, it's simple and clear and right there. So I
Right.
think we
Right. Right.
should
Right.
think about it.
Yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. Any other thoughts or anything? Again, like we don't have to. We're not really pressed for doing this right now, but I wanted to just bring it up.
I mean, my only thought is, I hope that, I mean, I don't know where Paul stands, but if he goes ahead and does a full committee with education that he had suggested, then we could meet every week, sorry, not every week, every month. But I
Every
don't
month.
know if, I don't know if this is the thinking. I know that he's rethinking stuff, but I don't know if
Mhm.
he's thinking of us being in that, or we always stay as a subcommittee, because it is then difficult for us to serve the issues that we want to serve in a meaningful way. If we meet every other month as a subcommittee,
Well,
and
May is
historically,
3 months from now.
yeah, also. And so
That's a
like we
long
skip
time.
some months off, and and then the other issue is also in terms of recruitment. When you are a subcommittee, it has always been more challenging recruiting members and holding them because of presence requirements, because actually subcommittees don't count
Mhm.
like full committees, etc., etc. So this is something to, I wanted to highlight so that whatever conversations are happening, you are aware of that, because it will make our work harder if we continue to meet once in a while.
No, absolutely. I just don't think that decision is going to be made immediately. I think that there's going to be new members in they get appointed in May or something, and they'll kind of need get their bearings and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I understand totally, but we're in like, what would they call this, a lame duck session or something? Not really.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'm just saying that
We are never lame.
Oh, I didn't say lame. I said lame duck, meaning like people are at the
Oh.
end of their terms, they're just hanging out. I don't know. But no, that's not what we're doing. at all, but yeah, okay, but yeah,
I was kidding, by the way.
yeah, I know. All right, okay, so I'm going to
We should
to
vote for the
adjourn.
rest to adjourn, exactly.
Yes, okay. Andrea Gordillo, yes. Tariq Durrell, not present. Olympia Kazi,
Yes.
Thomas Rosa, and Crystal Field.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, thank you all for coming. I'm glad we had a, short meeting. I'll see you all around.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Have a good one.